I do have one other non-weather thing I could talk about if that's what we want to do now. Okay, so we've been reporting lots here on WCNC and NBC News about federal cuts to organizations such as the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which then trickles down funding to local PBS and NPR stations across the country. This morning we received a update from PBS North Carolina. They are based in Raleigh, but they are the statewide PBS system that services all corners of North Carolina. And they emailed us to let us know that they will be offering voluntary separation agreements to most of their permanent employees following the most recent federal funding reductions totaling almost $9 million. David Crabtree, CEO of PBS North Carolina, says, and I quote, "We did not create this. It was dictated by Congress. Nonetheless, we will play the hand we've been dealt and plead to continue to be good stewards of our budget." The statement they provided does go on to talk a little bit about what we've reported on here, which is that in July, Congress passed a bill eliminating previously approved federal funding for the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, forcing them to wind down the Corporation for Public Broadcasting's operations. And that means that for PBS North Carolina, this action translates into an annual loss of about $4.8 million here on the state level. PBS North Carolina, in addition to being a statewide television service that offers programming from PBS, such as Sesame Street and Frontline, also plays a vital role here in North Carolina as the backup to the wireless emergency alert system. Their transmitters across the state that not only beam out their over-the-air television programming, also provide the infrastructure for the statewide emergency first responder network called Viper. And they're also the originating what we call pool feed, or just the camera in charge in the event that the Emergency Management Center in Raleigh, albeit the governor or emergency management, have to hold a statewide briefing, such as one for a hurricane. It's PBS North Carolina that beams that signal all around to us here in Charlotte and beyond, Vanessa. So, they do a lot more than just Big Bird.
Well, and, I've been looking into the potential impacts of this. And one of the things that we talk about is the fact, you talked about providing the crucial emergency information. I've been seeing the NPR, PBS itself, would likely be in a better shape, but it's the rural, local stations where this is probably the only option for folks that would probably be in the most dire financial straits.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to David Crabtree, the CEO of PBS North Carolina, about a month ago. And he explained to me that for them, their funding was kind of threefold. It was Corporation of Public Broadcasting, it was state funds, and it was viewers who donate, or if you ever watch PBS, the viewers like you. Yeah. To your point, Vanessa, there are other stations that could be even in harder situations if they don't have, say, state funding or don't have the same amount of viewer donations. But as we can see, there are still going to be real world impacts for PBS North Carolina, which, as David Crabtree explained to me, was a vital service in their eyes after Helene. Stations just like WCNC that have the ability to transmit over the air and don't rely on wires could reach into some of those hard-hit, cut-off areas through the airwaves. And so that's one of the things that PBS North Carolina prides themselves on, and their statement does say that despite these fiscal challenges, PBS North Carolina remains steadfast in its mission to provide trusted, high-quality public media that educates and informs and inspires while serving as the backbone of North Carolina's emergency management statewide infrastructure.
It's an interesting time, I think, considering there are multiple generations at this point of folks who have grown up with public television, public radio, and maybe always thought that this was going to be an option. I actually know as a child, we didn't have cable growing up, and I got a lot of my information from over-the-air channels, including PBS and some of the programming that you mentioned, as a child watching, Sesame Street, and Mr. Rogers, and I even remember as a kid, I loved Nova, the science program. But I know that the funding, when we first were reporting on the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the funding for that, we don't expect those programs to disappear overnight, But there is a big question mark.
There's a big question mark. We can see here today that with PBS North Carolina's decision to offer voluntary separation agreements with most of its permanent employees, we'll have to wait to see who some of those permanent employees are that decide to take the leave, because in addition to some of the national programming that they offer, they did have local programming that they would produce here in the Carolinas. So we'll have to wait to see, I guess, exactly what reduction in staff take them up on this offer, and then in turn what the impacts to their operation are. And it's probably worth noting that we're just talking about PBS NC here, but there are still possible impacts that could be seen with other public broadcasters. Here in Charlotte, we also have WTVI, which is PBS Charlotte, which is a completely different operation. And if you're watching from South Carolina, there's South Carolina Educational Television, SETV, which is a different statewide system. So here in the Charlotte area, we actually, just in terms of PBS stations, would have essentially 3 of them.
Yeah, something I definitely noticed when moving here from another state. But we really appreciate those updates. James, I know that you've been speaking closely with folks over there just to kind of see what sort of impacts could be coming. So this is yet another development, and we'll be watching closely to kind of see, maybe how the community responds, whether there is an outpouring. We know that, I've just been seeing from various reporting that there are community members who do feel like they want to support more. I've just been seeing a lot of that commentary online on social media. So
we've seen, you see it from time to time, right? With public broadcasters, they ask for donations during fund drives, and it seems like ever since the cuts to Corporation Public Broadcasting, they've all kind of gone into that fundraising mode.
Yeah. All right. Well, keep us posted, James.